Hey everyone, hopefully everyone's doing well. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Keeping It Positive. This episode, episode number 6, was another amazing one. Every time I do these, every recording, it's been flying by. After every episode, I always tell myself this is another amazing one. Was so incredible. It was so much fun. The guests have been spectacular. And this guest on this episode number 6 is no exception. Reagan O'Grady. What an amazing guy. I got to meet him through the brand, but in this episode, we talked a lot about his OHL career and his transition to being a coach and coaching in different systems. But now, currently, he's a coach for the Owen Sound Attack in the OHL, and I couldn't be more proud of him. We talked a lot about his coaching style. We talked about his perspective on things. We talked about his journey, his career, his obstacles, his challenges, and I think for Reags, what's really special about him is he always takes advantage of every single opportunity, no matter what has happened. He always sees the glass half full instead of half empty. Makes the most out of every opportunity, and sometimes he creates his own opportunities, and I think that's why he's so special. That rah guy, that positive guy that you always love to be around, and he's such a role model for everyone, not only for the people that he knows, but for not only for his players, but for the general public. I think his story is so relatable to so many others, and I think sometimes we get knocked down in life, but we just get back up, and I think we talked a lot about this in the podcast. It is having a purpose and choosing your purpose and going towards your purpose and going towards your goals and your dreams and everything like that. I think this episode is so insightful, and it's a really good reminder about so many different things. And I'm just very grateful that Reeves was able to take a little bit of time out of his busy schedule for a little old me. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this awesome episode. I know I did creating it, and right, Riggs. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. It's an honor and a privilege, and ever since the first day I met you, like you're that type of person that I want on here. You're just uplifting and just a great guy in what you do and how you're able to help the people around you and the selfless person you are, the leadership that you have, everything that you encompass is the perfect person for this. So I appreciate you being on here. And yeah, I can't wait to kind of talk a little bit about who you are, what you do. And I think this is going to be an amazing, amazing time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, Ryan. It's been quite the journey. I remember my Sudbury days, walking into the new Sudbury Center and seeing you and everything that you've gone through, and now owning the store on LaSalle, which is great. And so yeah, happy to join you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
It's pretty cool to think that it's been so long, like at the kiosk, and then to where we are now. But it's been a journey. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it's cool to kind of see that we met there, and now to see all the amazing things you're doing, and that's what the podcast is all about, and that's what I want to kind of talk about too. So, yeah, just for people that don't know who you are, and I just want you to kind of introduce yourself, um, and and I want people to. This whole thing is about uh, giving you a pedestal to like see how much of a great person you are, and I can't wait for people to hear about this.
Yeah, so obviously I'm Regan O'Grady. I was fortunate enough to meet Ryan back in my playing days. I was drafted in 2014 by the Kingston Frontenacs, was a 15th overall pick in the Ontario Hockey League, and had a couple different stops. Obviously Sudbury for 3 years, Kingston for half a year, then went on to the Mississauga Steelheads, was there for half a year. came up short in a playoff run, and then ended up moving to Saginaw with the Spirit there for my last year, and losing in the Western Conference Final, and just kind of after my OHL career wrapped up, almost 300 games in the league, 300 if you're counting playoffs, but
It's pretty
uh,
awesome.
it was something that I had to, deal with, what comes next after junior hockey. And, ultimately was forced to retire due to a health condition. And now kind of has brought me full circle, give back to the game that I love. And I'm fortunate enough, I've made stops across the Bishop Kearney Selects private school, running the boys program there. And then I came back to the Lindsay Muskies in the OJHL, working with my dad, and went out to Winnipeg, was doing some skill development stuff for the youth with the Jets Foundation and the Jets True North. And then ultimately, what I really wanted to do was get back into the Ontario Hockey League, and was fortunate enough to be hired at Owen Sound this year. And this is my first year under my belt. But all in all, a little bit crazy, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of time spent, traveling the world with hockey, but wouldn't change it for the world. And here I am today, entering my first off season. Just had my first OHL draft behind the bench, and really excited for what the future holds here in Owen Sound.
That's amazing. And yeah, I wanted to touch about a bunch of stuff, and maybe because you just mentioned it about the draft, and I remember sending you a direct message about like your first overall pick, and you said he's a steal of the draft. And I wanted to have like your perspective about like being the coach, but also like what's your involvement with the draft? Do you look at some of the players? Do you have an idea? Do you work closely with the scouting team? How does that all work?
Yeah, like it's a little bit of everything. I think for us, it's just we're all in it together. We're all in it fighting for one common goal, is obviously to get the next crew of OHL Owen Sound Attack players in the door. And I think this year was there was a lot new to me, which was awesome. But for the draft, like we're spending time watching some video on some kids, and getting to learn the landscape of the age group, and kind of ultimately seeing what we have returning next year, guys fighting for spots, and see how many can open up. And like I said, we were super happy with Max DeLille, obviously brother of Tristan DeLille, that's already played for us this year. Was inquired in a trade from the Oshawa Generals. So exciting times ahead. I look back to my days with the Pilon brothers and how special that relationship was, playing with your brother. So I can only imagine how excited those two are for many years to come here in Owen Sound. But yeah, for the draft, I think it's just we're trying to get the best player available at every single pick. And the draft's a weird thing. Like you can't predict what they're going to be 3 to 5 years from now. But we have a really good scouting staff led by our general manager and Dale DeGray. And he leaned on us a little bit, the coaching staff, Scott Ray, Brandon Shaw, and I, to do some video work and see our input was valued in certain areas that we thought we needed to address, kind of holes that we saw from a coaching day-to-day perspective. And ultimately, we want to draft the best player available, but we also are very big into culture, and we want great people and great families in Owen Sound. And that's one thing that we preach this year, and that's what we're going to continue to strive to do.
And I think that's so important about having with the OHL team or any team too, right? It's about culture and trying to build something special towards it. It's about having good hockey players, but good good kids on the team, right? And having that foundation to be able to like, I think you as a coach and having you being a role model for those kids too, and teaching them the right way. And I think OHL is so special because yeah, it's a development league, but it's a development league in more than one way, right? It's development league obviously with hockey, but as a person too, and trying to allow like they're coming in as kids and most of the time leaving as men, right? Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think for us too, like like you said, it's just about getting that foundation. I think that the OHL, especially, it's still junior hockey. There's still, lots of games that are won just off of buy-in, I think. And we saw that this year. We were ranked as the 20th team going into the Ontario Hockey League in, September, and nobody thought that we would make playoffs. And we kind of, set a foundation. We set a culture, we set a buy-in, and, down the stretch, it was exciting. It was fun to be at the rink every single day with our guys, because it was one big family, from our top of our ownership and our president to, our GM to head coach down to, our 16-year-old players. Like, everybody was on the same program. We pushed every day, and our motto that we lived by was, you get 1% better every day. And I think that's what we did. And, we were fortunate to obviously sneak into playoffs, get a little bit of a taste in, 4 games, ultimately coming up short to London. But, they're a great hockey team. Enough can be said about them. I think that, it's either Memorial Cup or bust for them again this year, right? They're always in the hunt. But, it just comes back to, just at the end of the day, we want to draft good people. We want to bring in good cultured kids. And I think, a lot of teams have success with, the buy-in factor, and we saw it this year. And, there's a lot of work to be done, but we're trending in the right direction.
And that's all you can do, right? Go in the right direction every single day. Like you said, do it 1% better every single day. And if you get a little bit better and a little bit better, it all adds up to something really big. And that's what you saw with a berth in the playoffs, right? When no one ever thought that you guys would make it. I think it's good, like, to be able to prove the people that believe in you right, and the people that don't believe in you wrong, right? And that kind of gave you probably a chip on your shoulder, and kind of gave you a rally. You guys can rally together, and build something truly, truly special. And being able to meet a team like London in the first round and see how that kind of organization goes, right? You can build off that. It's not that people might think, oh, like, it's 4 games and that's it, but it's more than that. It's a learning experience, right? And you can utilize it for next year and build off that, and utilize that as momentum to hit the ground running in September, and even before that with training camp, right?
Yeah, and I think for us it was, we saw a lot about our team, right? Like, you come in, it's a whole new staff. Everyone was on a clean slate come August 20th last year, and so now it's like, okay, well, there's some guys that really have to fight for their jobs, and there's guys that are obviously secured, and it's just, for us, it's we learned a lot about our staff, we learned a lot about ourselves, and we learned a lot about our team. And it's an exciting time. I think with us, it's just, again, we've set the foundation. Now we need to add to it. And I think
Mm-hmm.
like the Denver Barkeys, the Easton Cowans, those type of players, Sam Dickinson, Oliver Bonk, the list goes on in London. Like, the amount of work that they've put in and how hard it is to play against them, like, they set the bar. And so now our guys got a bit of a taste of that. And a lot of young, inexperienced guys, which are great. And, like, we leaned on some guys heavy down the stretch. And it was exciting times for us today as an organization. We just were the OHL just announced that Pierce Buie was named Rookie of the Year for the whole OHL. So for us, like, that's another tip in our cap to what Pierce did. And everybody supporting it, right? So yes, it's one player's accolades, but it's everybody involved. And we're super lucky and fortunate to have him, but the supporting cast around him to make it all happen.
Yeah, it's an individual award, but it comes to the whole team, right? Without the team, that would have never happened. And I love, like, when stuff like that happens. I see, like, you shared on your stories, and you're kind of like their biggest cheerleader, and it's cool to have that support, and all you guys care about each other, and that's what a team really, really is. And I think you hear a lot about it in the NHL and in all hockey, but, like, when you make it to the playoffs, like, you need a different level, right? And it's gonna show the boys that next year you're gonna need to go to reach another level to get to where you want to go, right? And it's just that perspective to get that extra gear, and playoff hockey is a different beast, right? It doesn't matter what happens in the regular season. And I think it probably shows the boys that you need to be at this caliber to get to where you want to go. But right when you were talking about that, you said at the start of the season it was a clean slate. Everything was new. The coaching staff was new, and I know it's your first year, And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. What's the process of like getting hired as the coach or assistant coach, and what 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 is your kind of role as one of the coaches, and what yeah, I guess what would be your role, I would say.
Yeah, so obviously, like being hired in the OHL, like you got to go through an interview process. So, sent my resume to our GM Dale DeGray. It was in the midst of them just hiring the head coach Scott Ray, and kind of just open lines of communication, just early kind of conversation. They were looking to hire, the first assistant, and they ended up hiring Brandon Shaw. And then, it came down to some phone conversations. So first, I talked to Dale DeGray, had a really good conversation with him, and it was I was told that like he was hiring the second assistant, the head coach was hiring the first, and so when had a good conversation with Dale, and then a couple weeks later, ended up talking to the head coach and Scott Ray, and him and I just kind of hit it off. Like we talked a lot about the league and my playing experience, obviously just a short time ago, and kind of what that looked like. And for me, got to open up to really, kind of who I am, and which was awesome. And by the end of the conversation, 45 minutes later, he was like, you know what, I really want you to be a part of my staff. Like, I really like where this is going. He liked that I had the skills background that I did in Winnipeg last year. And, so I kind of got to see a little bit of different things over the last, 3 or 4 years, coaching skills, running benches, being with my dad, learning the business side of the game. And so he was like, you know what, you're well-rounded, you're well-versed, and, you're a young guy. I want to give you an opportunity. So after I had that conversation with him, it was only a day or two that I had to wait. And I ultimately got the call from Dale, welcoming me aboard. And so it was pretty surreal experience, like, just kind of going through that, really for the first time in the OHL, and had some interviews prior, but one that I really felt, I had a chance to really be there, and ultimately got the job. And then, yeah, like, move away from my family yet again. Had some good things lined up, and came here with the mindset, I want to do whatever I can to help the boys, help the team, and that's kind of was my role. Like, I was the second assistant, but I was kind of that gap bridge between the players and the coaching staff. And for me, it was all about making sure that at the end of the day, everybody loved showing up to the rink, wanted to get better. I spent a lot of time on the skills side, so helping guys after practice and doing that sort of stuff, and then like doing some pre-scouts for what the team was going to do. We kind of all did that as a group, and then working alongside our head coach, had the opportunity to run the power play this year, which was pretty cool. And so I went in as a guy just wanting to get my feet wet, help wherever I could, and took on some big roles with a lot of responsibility. And super thankful for our head coach and Scott Ray allowing me to do what I was able to do this year, and putting the trust in me. It's funny, like, you look at coach to player relationship, and you look at coach to coach now being on this side for me, like, it's a lot of the same, right? Like, you have to have the trust in your coach to give you more. And so, just like a player, like, it's dictated by ice time. As a coach, it's dictated by responsibilities to help the team, and in-game management, in-game adjustments, those sort of things. All in all, really good year one, and looking forward to getting back to bigger and better things in year 2 and 3.
And that's a good perspective to have, right? Like, when you think about like ice time with players, and then responsibility with coaches, and you kind of you proved it this year that when you were given opportunities, you took it and you ran with it, and you did the best you could, and it all worked out. And I think what's really cool with you is because you're so young, right? And you're closer to the ages of the players, rather, because you're not so far away from playing, right? And I think having that coach, having a younger perspective, and being able to relate more to the players too, I think that's a really cool touch to have in your back pocket, kind of thing. And I think when you were a player, you had a you you had like a leadership role. You were an assistant captain with the Wolves, and when you played AAA, you were captain. And then, do you think that helps you in your coaching career, like having that leadership role and being able to relate to the players? And no, because you've been in their shoes, so I think that would probably be easier to be able to relate with them as well, right?
Yeah, I think that, and I think also too, like like I've obviously learned under some really good coaches. My time in the OHL, I had some really good coaches, and I got to experience kind of differences amongst coaches as well, right? And you kind of mold yourself off of things that you love as a player, things that coaches do that you love, and you're always really learning, right? And I'm off to Italy this week, and going to be around some really cool hockey minds over the next 10 days, 14 days. And, even though it's a young kids tournament, like, having drinks with the coaches, talking to them, getting to know some of them is going to be a special time. Like, I'm always wanting to better myself in any which way that I can. And, for me this year, I wanted to be everything to do with the players. So, if somebody had a bad night or a bad breakup or whatever it was, that wasn't great, that, kind of blurred their mindset. I wanted to go in and help. And I think that's kind of my DNA. It's my personality. Like, I'm a people pleaser. I want everybody to be happy and where they're at. And so for me, it's all about just giving back to them and staying focused at the task at hand. And I think for, looking back at my playing career, Paul Coffey, my time in Sudbury, Dave Matsos, like James Richmond in Mississauga, Chris Lazary. Like, there's a lot of good guys that I've played for that, have done, wonders with their teams and where they're at. And, Chris Lazary, an assistant coach with the World Juniors this year, like there's things that he did that I took and now I'm implementing. And there's also things that I can learn from too. Like, there's days where things aren't going well, and it's easy to point the finger, or it's easy to, kind of backlash and be angry. But at the end of the day, like, I'm in hockey. Like, every day is a blessing. I get to go to the rink. I get to hang out with the guys. I get to show video. I get to talk hockey, 10-fold through, being at the rink all the time. So, I just remember that, at the end of the day, I could be at a desk job 9 to 5, and, maybe something I don't want to do, but, ultimately I want to be in the game of hockey, and I'm very passionate about it. I love it. And, this is just the start of my journey.
And I think the reason why, like, it's your passion, right? And it doesn't feel like work. You can probably work 20 hours a day, yeah, and coaching probably feels like that sometimes, but it doesn't really feel like work because you're really passionate about it and you want to improve and you want the boys to improve. And I think it's such a cool perspective to have that, like, the boys feel comfortable to go towards you if they're having a breakup, or it's more than just hockey, right? It's life, and having that them under your wing to be able to lead them in the right direction and to mold them into the people that they will become, right? And you're probably one of those coaches that they're gonna think of when they're older, and having you as a coach rather, and the way you're talking about your older coaches, which is pretty awesome. Do you ever when you play against them, your old coaches, do you ever go see them and talk to them before or after the game?
Yeah, absolutely. I've kept good relationships with majority of them. For me, it's again like, there's the hockey circle is so small, as everybody knows, and it's one of those things that you don't want to shut a door because you think you're better than somebody else or whatever. And making time for people, just to even say hello, catching up. A lot of the coaches I played for had kids, families, checking in, seeing how their kids are doing. I remember them running around the rinks and whatnot, and kind of just listening to what they're doing now is pretty cool and surreal. And so, yeah, like, I talk to all the guys, I talk to all the coaches, even coaches that I never played for in the league, getting now to know them through just, friendly competition, friendly banter, and whatnot. And yeah, it's been awesome to be back in the league, and just very fortunate every day.
And it's cool to be able to do what you're doing and getting opportunities like going to Italy and coaching teams like that too, and helping out your dad. And I know you mentioned with your dad the business side of things. What is he doing with hockey?
So he was the head coach and general manager with the Lindsay Muskies in the OJHL, and so when I came back from Bishop Kearney to be with him, he wanted me to kind of get into the GM side of things and as well, and so I was getting to see how they make trades and all the paperwork and all that kind of stuff, and he just said like I'm on the back half of my coaching career. I want to support you and what you're doing, and if you go on to make it to bigger and better things, I want to be able to travel and see you. And my brother's got a kid now, so he wants to be a grandpa a little bit and spend time with his grandson, which is totally fair. And so he gave me that opportunity to really kind of see hockey from even that perspective. One I didn't really know too much of. Obviously you see all the trades come trade deadline week in the NHL or the OHL, and so get to be privy behind scenes to really see what they do and how it comes together and stuff. And then by the second year I was with him, I was the one making the trades. It was like, hey, these guys have come up for trade, watch some video, have conversations, and then pull the trigger and get deals done. And so I think that's really branched out my horizon and given me another perspective that if 5 years from now I feel that I want to move into that side of things, it's not I'm starting from ground zero. Like I've already got my feet wet with a different league, but still along the same lines, right? So I'm just learning every day and love coaching. I love being that, but I also love that side of the scale too. And for me, it's just we'll see where opportunities take me. I don't want to close any doors. I don't want to say that I'm going to be coaching the next 10, 15, 20 years. I have no idea. Just kind of living day by day and taking it one step at a time.
And that's how it is, right? You take every opportunity and you run with it. And the cool thing about all this is like you have experience being like in a general manager perspective and the coaching perspective and the player perspective. And how how do you like? I think it all helps your coaching career, right? And having that perspective as a player or having that perspective as a GM, seeing on how it all comes about. And I think that's such a cool way because a lot of people don't have that opportunity too. And like you're coaching the younger kids too, and going to all these other tournaments and skill and development in Winnipeg, and I think you're building something truly special, a skill set that not a lot of people have, right? And that's what sets you apart from other coaches or other people around the league. And I think that's something truly. I think what's really impressive is you're always trying to work on your craft no matter what and always saying yes to every single opportunity given to you, right? And like you said, like you walk the walk and you talk the talk because you say you never know what's going to happen. You don't want to close any single door, and I think saying yes to everything and taking advantage of an opportunity within the lifetime of the opportunity, making the most out of everything. That's what it's all about too, right? And I think seeing your play, seeing like having your players watch you do that day in and day out, that gives them a perspective to keep going and keep trying and take advantage and try their best. And I think having that you as a role model and a positive person within that locker room, I think it really rubs off on that too. And you being who you are, your positivity and how you compose yourself, it really trickles down. And I think that's such a valuable asset to have as a coach, to have that positive impact and to keep that positivity going. And I think a lot of your coaching style is that, right? Being positive and loving the game and learning as much as possible and growing. And I think um, for what I wanted to kind of ask a little bit about that is your attitude and how you love the game and your positivity and for thinking a little bit about this, like being positive and having that mindset. Have you always been like that, being that uplifting, positive person that everyone wants to be around? Like, and how do you find that has helped you to be the coach you are today?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that kind of go into it. I think, first and foremost, it's, how you present yourself every single day. I think it goes to communication and, treat people that way you want to be treated. And I think just learning from my playing career, the do's and the don'ts and trying to mold into the way that I am. That was another area. And then lastly, just, continuing to build relationships. Like you want to be known as a person that, has the players' backs, will go to the bat for them, will give, the utmost respect and, just push them to the brink of elimination without going overboard. And I think it's just a matter for me, obviously having to deal with a health condition, having to retire, felt that hockey was taken from me. I felt that I still had some things left to prove and, just kind of shifting it. And I think that was kind of the make or break for me was, when I got diagnosed, hockey taken from me, you can't live with, what is my life going to be like in a year from now, let alone, what is it going to be tomorrow? And I think that's kind of what, when things turn even more to the positive side. Yeah, there's days where, I could be grumpy and negative, but it's, there's, lots going on, right? Like that's
Mm.
just everyday life. But for the most part, try and really be positive, try and really, help guys, try and communicate. I think, a lot of kids nowadays want to know why they're doing something. And if you can communicate to your players, you can really build a relationship with players. Like, they're going to go to the wall for you. And that's what, I kind of felt with our staff this year. That's one thing that we really tried to be, cognizant of was, open door policy. If you're having an issue, if you're having a bad day, come to us. Like, we at times had in our coach's office, all three of us plus, 10 of our players, and we called it our players lounge. Like it was just like, oh yeah, here, come on in, like everyone come on in, come hang out. Like, and like not many teams get the opportunity to have that. I think it's something truly really special, and that's what we were lucky to do this year. And that's just goes from, not only myself, but, our two other coaches, our equipment manager, athletic therapist, everybody involved. Like that's kind of what we turned this year into. And for me, it's just, again, making sure that, everyone's clear of mind, clear of sight, and just understands the task at hand. And, I think some guys really learned through, kind of what I went through. I opened up with our guys this year about my story and, just said like, hey, you're in the league that I finished my career at. Why can't we get you to the next one, right? And on the bigger and better things. And for example, our number one goalie Carter George, world junior guy. He's up in the American League right now. I've been texting with him back and forth every couple of days, checking in on him and stuff. And like these are relationships I'm building with all of our players. We just had one at the U18s, in pre tryouts and pre camp with them. Like for Team Canada. Like these are special things that, I'm going to talk to a lot of these guys for a long time. And so, every day being positive, being upbeat with them goes a long way. And just, at the end of the day, hey guys, how are you? Like, I don't care about your game. Like, how are you? Like, what's going on in your family? Like, we want to know all these things because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that they're in a good mindset. So, positivity, creates a foundation for us to really connect with our guys, and it's all about being positive through communication and making sure that they get the message. Sometimes there's tough love, but at the end of the day, it's pretty rewarding, being in the position that I'm in.
It's kind of like our parents, right? It's tough love, but they just want the best for us, right? And I think going back to what you said, it's like it was kind of like the player lounge, and everyone wanted to be around you guys. I think that's a testament, because back in the day, like old school coaches, you were scared of your coaches, right? They're intimidating, and you like. I think the cool nowadays, and what you guys are providing in Owen Sound, I think that's so special. It's more of an open door policy, be comfortable, and like I think it's more about your well being and developing you to be the best player you can be, but the best person that you can be. And by doing so, you need to be comfortable. You need to be comfortable in your own skin. And I think being able to relate to to one another, I think that's super important, right? And I think like that's how you build your culture, like you previously we previously talked about at the start, right? And I think the most special part of all this is building relationships. And when these guys are going to be done playing, you're still going to be friends with them, right? And it's like in business, when I think about it, when you were talking, I was thinking like it's all about building relationships and getting out of your own head and being interested in people and getting to know them, who they are, and what they like and what they don't like, and what makes them tick and what doesn't. And for you, with a coaching perspective, like every player is different, right? And some players work in different ways, and some players react to one thing, and while others don't. And I think finding who they are as a person and what their strength is and what their weaknesses is, and I think that's it's all about. To try to get the best out of them possible, and being able to get to know them on a human level. And when you said you texted Carter, I thought that was the coolest thing. Like he probably thinks like you guys like, oh, I'm on to the next level, you know. But I think building that culture, building that Owen Sound family, he'll always be part of the family, and you'll always be friends, you know. And I think rooting for one another, and it's pretty crazy. Like I think his first start, he got a shutout, right?
Yeah,
Which is pretty awesome. And
yeah,
and and when I saw that, I was like, Reags probably loves that too, you know. And no matter what your players do, you always post about them, and like I said, you're like you want the best for them, and it's super special, right? And I think it really goes a really long way. And when I kind of think about like sports and even what I'm doing with business. And I think caring about people and adding value and getting and being there for one another. I think that's what makes the world a truly better place, whether it's with sports or business or anything. It makes the world go round, right? And if you can be there for other people and really add value and be your best self, but because of being your best self, you're able to bring out the best in others. And I think, especially with a development league like the OHL, I think that's key. And I think you're the perfect guy for the job. And hearing those stories are truly awesome. And I'm sure when September hits, when training camp hits, all the boys are going to want to be back and see you, and there's going to be 20, 30 guys in your office, you know. And I think sharing your story too, I wanted to touch on that a little bit as well. Like your diagnosis and your being able, you had to retire from hockey, but like a lot of guys in your position, sorry, would probably be like, oh, you know what, screw hockey. Like I can't do it anymore. They would mope, or they would find all the negative things and this not. But you did the opposite. Like even if it was a bad situation, there was something good that came out of it. You can still be involved in hockey in a different way, right? And for me, like I kind of relate to that too. It's like I have cerebral palsy, but I always loved sports. I always loved hockey, and that's why I took the sports administration program. I learned, like I couldn't play sports like most people, but I can still be involved in sports in some way. And I think, like when you talked a little bit about that, it made me think of that. There's always more than one way to do something, even though you can't play hockey on the ice. You can still be involved in some way and having a positive impact and having a positive outcome. And sometimes one door closes, but another one opens, right? And it might you might think one opportunity is closed, your hockey career is done as a player, but it gives you another opportunity, and it might be better than you can ever imagine, right? It gave you an opportunity to coach, and it gave you an opportunity in the management side, and a whole different perspective on the game that you love.
yeah. And I think that's kind of, ultimately what led to my decision. I think with, my parents having the conversation a little bit after some time to really kind of, dissect what had happened. And, I was down in the States when I was fully diagnosed. And so, it was through COVID. My parents weren't there. And so it was tough times. But, at the end of the day, when we sat down as a family and we talked about it, I just said to them, like, guys, I don't know how else I can put it, but I never went to school just because I was a student. Like I always had played sports. I had always had hockey after. I was like, I don't know if like school's for me. I don't know if that's one of those things that I can sit in a classroom and do, and then have really nothing to truly look at after the fact. And I think it was just I want to be a coach. I want to give back to the game of hockey, and my mind my mindset, excuse me, just went from, hey, just because I can't make it as a player doesn't mean I can't make it in some other capacity. And
Yeah.
that's kind of when ultimately it led to me moving down to the prep school, and then coming back home, and then going out to Winnipeg, and now in Owen Sound. And I've had conversations with my girlfriend, family over the last little while. I was talking to a fellow friend that's looking to kind of get into the OHL, wants an opportunity, and I just said to them, like, without risks, without building relationships, without being a good communicator, none of this happens. And I think that's what kind of set me apart from a lot of different people. I was willing to take risks. I was willing to move on my own. I was willing to, take pay decreases to increase my resume and portfolio, and to one day, hopefully, being in the National Hockey League in some capacity, or the American Hockey League, or overseas. Like, these are things that I strive to do. Like, my dad and I had a conversation along with my family, girlfriend involved last year, and on the boat. And, I said, by the time I'm 35, I want to be coaching pro hockey, or in pro hockey in some capacity. And, now it's just because I'm not playing doesn't mean that there's, not opportunity for me to set goals and try and achieve. And, that's 9 years from now. But at the end of the day, it goes by so fast. Like 9 years ago, I was drafted in the OHL. Like, and, where is that time gone? Right. So,
Yeah.
it's pretty funny to look back on now and just kind of see, everything that I've done over the last, 5 years, 6 years since, kind of out of the game, I guess 5 years now. But, and now really, onto that next phase, and that next chapter. And like you said, one door closes, another one opens. And it all just comes back to just, being grateful for every opportunity that I've had. Can't thank all the people that have surrounded me, trusted me, given me opportunity. Just appreciate everything. And, I'm going to continue to do that until, I reach the pinnacle. And that's something I want to do. And I'm just going to strive to do every single day. And, there's unique experiences along the way. Example, going to Italy on Friday. Like, these are things that's the, I guess the good that comes with, being in the job. But, all in all, just, very, very lucky, wouldn't change it for the world. And, just super lucky that I was able, when I was diagnosed, to still be in the game of hockey at the end of the day, right? Like, it could have easily been taken from me, but, just kind of had to change the lens a little bit from a player to a coach. And here we are.
But and I think, like, changing your lens, I think having you as a player helped you as a coach too, right? And the thing you've been able to do in the last 5 years is pretty incredible, because there's probably not a coach young like you in the league, is there?
No, there's not. I'd be the youngest coach. I don't know how old the next youngest coach is. I'd probably say 2 or 3 years older than I am. But yeah, like, you know what, it's one of those things that I don't really look at it, to be honest, as, I'm the young guy in the league. Like, what an honor. But for me, it's just I'm grateful to be back
Mhm.
in, to fully indulge. And, obviously, everyone that's been super supportive of me and my transition to here. And can't say enough of really good things.
And I think, like, what's really helped you as well is, like, you're grateful for everything, eh? Like the attitude of gratitude. And I think that kind of goes a long way too, right? And being able to be mentored by the coaches on your team too, and learning from them, and having that perspective. And when you kind of think about, like, your whole journey, who would, or what are some of the people, or who are some of the people, sorry, that kind of helped you along? I know you talked a little bit about your dad, and usually when I ask these questions, everyone says their parents, and rightfully so. And is there other people too Your parents probably being number one for sure, Carly as well as one of them, but like that kind of influence you and has have a positive impact on your career so far.
Yeah, I think first guy that comes to mind for me is Joe Templin. He was a founder of Selects Hockey. He ran some summer tournaments, and to be honest, it dates back to the day that I lost in the Eastern playoffs when I was in Sudbury. We lost in Game 6 to the Oshawa Generals. A couple days later, I'm sitting at home. It was a Tuesday. I was going into Whitby. I had just got home on the Sunday, and it was one of those things that I got a random message on Facebook. I was driving. I got to the gym, looked at it, and Joe had messaged and said, "Hey, like I'm having some hard time, finding some coaches. I saw that you guys just lost in playoffs. Do you want to come coach?" And I was like, "Yeah, like kind of tell me more about it." So jumped on a phone call. 2 days later, I was at the tournament. That was my first ever coaching experience. I was still playing. I was still young. Kind of funny how it all works out. And then, yeah, like he was the one that hired me to go to the prep school when I was diagnosed and fully had to retire. And so, without him, without the opportunity, the guidance, everything that he showed me and gave to me, I wouldn't be where I am today. That's one person for sure. Like you said, my parents, big supporters of everything I've done, have traveled the world with me, given their shirt off their backs for me. And so, for them, obviously extremely grateful. Another person would be my grandpa, like, obviously since passed. He took me in at a young age to give me the opportunity to play in the GTHL, play for the Toronto Marlies. And, without him, wasn't able to go on to the career I had in the OHL. So, I'm a huge believer. Like everything happens for a reason. All the people that I have relationships with, have all been a little small sample of my coaching career, my playing career. Given me a lot, and forever grateful. And again, it just goes back to relationships. It goes back to building those and maintaining them. And I'm always one to reach out. Hey, what's going on? Tell me more. Like what's going on with kids, family, whatever it is. And that's the one thing about me. And is I take pride in that. Like I want to stay connected to the people that have given me those opportunities. And yeah, those are a couple just to mention along a long list of people that I could also mention. But those come top of mind when I listen to that question. And so again, there's many more people that I could sit here and thank, but the Leaf game's on soon, and I don't want to miss any of
um, but yeah, it should be a good game tonight too. I think,
it.
but I'll be watching a little bit as well. But yeah, like when you think about like I think when you mentioned your grandpa, I think that's super cool. I was super close with my grandmother growing up, and I think that relationship and him showing you so much and giving you like the passion of the game too and all those opportunities is super special. I think having that relationship with a grandparent, it really goes a long way, right? Um, and I think like with your parents, your grandfather, and so many amazing people around your life, they've given you those values and helped you be who you are today. And I wanted to mention the coach you were talking about earlier. Like you must be good at your phone call interviews because you had phone call interviews with him and everything worked out, and you had your phone call interviews with Owen Sound and all that worked out. So I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's pretty wild how it all comes together, right? It's one of those things that's something I've pride myself in, just wanting to be that kind of open book person, wanting to, make sure that people are happy in everything that they do. And if I come across them, I try and help out in any way I can, right? So I think it goes hand in hand with, the person that I've become, but more importantly, like, the coach that I'm starting to become. By no means am I perfect, but I think that a lot of people can really, look up to what I've done and have accomplished in a short span. And again, it goes back to, willing to do a lot of the things that I have. There was times that, not gonna lie, like, living paycheck to paycheck, and asking mom and dad for some money here and there. Like, those are things that was just the reality for me. But
Mhm.
now I'm on to, hopefully bigger and better things as I continue down this path. And like I said, it's one day at a time. It's one activity at a time, and just, can't look too much into the future. It's just living in the moment, be present where your feet are, and just always kind of, having a purpose, right? Like, everything that I do, I want to have a purpose. And so, whether that's through video, it's through, being on the ice with the guys, it's through, pre-scouts, have a purpose on, everyday life, and you'll be better for it.
Yeah, I think that's what it's so important when you do something, have a purpose, right? And that's what you kind of do every day, like you mentioned. And a funny story with your parents when you guys came to Sudbury this year, and it wasn't the best game for you guys, but Carly was telling me your mom was texting her saying, pull the fire alarm because like you like finish the game, like we don't want to watch this anymore. You know, I thought it was pretty funny, but that just goes to show how supportive your parents are too. They watch every game, and they always want you to succeed. And I think that was kind of a cool story to mention that I knew about, and I think that's like they want to see you and your siblings succeed, right? And that's what parents are all about. And I think that's truly special. And I know for me, I wouldn't be where I am without my parents. And I think, like you said, like giving their shirt off their back and traveling with you and doing whatever it takes to allow you to get to where you want to go, and watching every single game, even if you're not playing, you're coaching and knowing that you have an impact on the game too is truly special. And I don't want to take too much of your time. I know the Leafs game is starting soon, but I do have a couple more questions if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
One would be I always like to ask about different quotes and stuff. Is there a quote or a mantra that you try to live by every single day? I think this is important to ask because of the person you are, the uplifting guy that you are, and it's just something that kind of helps you on your day to day life.
Yeah, I think having a purpose. My dad was fortunate to be in the OHL as well. He scouted for the London Knights back when they drafted Bo Horvat, and traded for Max Domi a little bit before my time. And they had a goalie from Michigan who ended up passing, just after being drafted by them. And it was one of those things that. He wrote on his sticks like HAP, and it was have a purpose. And I think that's one that's really stuck with me through, my good days, my bad days, the ups, the downs, everything that, kind of life throws at you. And it's one of those things, whether I meet some fan in the grocery store, going out of my way when they say hello to, try and open up a conversation, try and start something like, and it's, when you have a purpose, you leave no regret, right? And
Mm.
that's one of those things. I think for me, just living by every single day is everything that you do. Just have a purpose. If you have a purpose, then you have a purpose to life, and you continue to push yourself in the right direction, right? And I know that at times things can get tough, and there's a lot of different things that go on in the world, and it's out of your control. But the things that you can control, if you have a purpose, you're going to succeed. And whether that's business, it's relationships, it's family, it's whatever. That's one of those things that I kind of have strived to do. And then, obviously in Owen Sound this year, like, get 1% better every day. Like, that's another one, right? Like, it's not what are you doing for me now? It's what are you going to do for me, next tomorrow. And I think that, don't look, in the rearview mirror, what could it have been? What should it have been? Like, be present where your feet are, continue to push yourself every single day, and don't leave, the rink at the end of a skate, or at the end of a gym session, or at the end of a game being like, what if I did this on this play? Like, there's moments in the game where we call timeouts, or we make line changes, or we adjust to an in-game strategy, and sometimes it works out and you look like a genius, and sometimes it doesn't. But how do you reflect from that? How can you take it in stride and be better for it, right? And those are a couple of things that I've kind of started to live by.
I love that because like when you're talking, I can tell like, that is Reags. You know what you do. Like every time I see you and how you talk and like, having a purpose and what you're like, that's what you like. You're not just talking it, you're living it, right? And I think that's truly special. I think there's a lot of people that say a lot of stuff, but their actions don't follow. But I know you're putting it into real life,
Yeah.
and I think that's the most amazing thing, and I think that's what like that's who you are. That's what your legacy is, right? And even though you're so young, talking about legacy, and one my last question usually is something along the lines of legacy, but I feel like your legacy is being able to help people on a day-to-day basis and having the right people around you to help you succeed. And for me, when I think about legacy for you is just trying to help people and making the world a better place, not just in hockey, but in life itself, and having your players be the best person they can be and be a valuable impact on the community. Right? You took your OHL career and I think it has allowed you to like the coaches what the coaches have done for you is gonna and then now you're doing that for your players, which is pretty special. And I think, like the person that you are, I think you are exactly where you're supposed to be, the type of person you are, the heart that you have such a big heart. You have so many good values, and I think a person like you is a perfect person for a job, and especially molding young kids for the future. And I think that's I think when I think of legacy and your purpose and everything like that, that's what I think. And I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And this is just the beginning of something truly special.
Yeah, and I think for me too, it's just a matter of like, continuing to push the envelope every single day. And whether that's players, it's away from the rink, it's at the rink. I think that just continuing to give back, whether it's in the community. I was huge in the community in Sudbury, and my time spent there. Visiting hospitals and sick kids, and doing that sort of stuff. And I think at the end of the day, it's you have to have it from within. I think that you can't with some of these things that people do. It can't be fake. It can't be forced upon. And I think that I had some good role models in my life that I looked up to. That always said, hey, there's going to be special people that you look after. Your fans, your community, the places that you play in. When people talk to you, it's not like why am I talking to you? It's like you're engaged, you're interacting, you're focused on what's going on, and the trainers, like the support staff, all the things. And as weird as it sounds, like there's times throughout the day where I go back and sit with the trainers and kind of just shoot the breeze and make sure that they're good as well, right? So it takes a village. It's all hands on deck to do what I'm doing, but at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm kind of in some fantasy land, to be honest. That I ride a bus here and there. I stand behind a bench for 68 games a year, and plus playoffs, and it's something that I could never have imagined. That's 26 years old. I have accomplished a lot of different things, but life throws me curveballs, and I've adapted and reacted to every single one of them. And when I got knocked down, I'm back on my feet again. And so just continuing to trek along, and yeah, just forever grateful and very fortunate, and just loving where I'm at right now.
Oh, that's perfect. I think that's the perfect way to end it. And all your answers are spot on, and I can't thank you for taking the time. And you are such a big role model for me, and that's why I kind of wanted you on this to kind of share your story, share your perspective, and demonstrate the heart that you have and the amazing person that you are. And I think people listening to this is a real treat, and being able to hang out with you for an hour is such a big privilege, and it's an honor. And every time I see you, I always feel the same way. So thanks a lot, Reeks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, I love spending time up in Sudbury. I'm going to see you soon, I'm sure. So I appreciate you having me on, and always a breath of fresh air when I come into the store with Car and I. So thanks again for everything.
Oh, no problem, buddy. I appreciate it.